Are the seven deadly sins even sins at all? Hey guys, it's Jhon sitting here in my living room on a beautiful afternoon. It's going to rain a little bit here, but it's in the mid 60s and it's the last day of fairly temperate weather for a while. It's going to be in the 40s for the next couple days and rain. So I thought I'd hop on here in the living room and shoot a few videos to get them in queue on the channel. Let's talk about the seven deadly sins. The concept of the seven deadly sins is a fascinating one because people tout them as the seven deadly sins all the time, and they are lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. So let's talk about these first of all from a historical perspective. They are not listed in the Bible as a sin anywhere. These were actually constructs of immorality that the church would talk about, but they were never listed in the Bible as a sin in any way, shape, or form. They were immoral practices or weaknesses in human nature. And there was a couple of early Christian leaders who were talking about. When I say early, I'm talking in the 400s, around that time period, that were talking about these immoralities and these weaknesses of the human body and the human mind. And it got formalized by Pope Gregory in the 5th century, and he talked about these immoralities. Now, when they finally became the seven deadly sins, that was in the 1300s with St. Thomas Aquinas. He's the one who started promoting them as sin itself. And so they're not technically sins according to the ancient text, the Bible, in any way, shape, or form. They're just weaknesses of humans, basically. And each one of these weaknesses had a counter, an opposite way of overcoming that weakness. And so if we go down to lust, now lust is an interesting one because at the time, in the 400s, in the 5th century, they were really, pushing out Paul's writings, Paul's stuff. And Paul was a big ideologue of everyone being celibate. All Christians should be celibate. He was coming from his Pharisaic beliefs, and he was literally he literally thought that all Christians should be celibate because the second coming was happening in his lifetime, and that there was no reason to bring more children in because the end of the world was coming. He was an apocalyptic preacher, and so he believed everyone should be celibate. He especially believed that any spiritual avatar like Jeshua had to be celibate, and which is why Mary Magdalene ends up becoming tied into the story of the prostitute who gets stoned. They're two. Mary Magdalene is almost hardly mentioned in the Bible, and the prostitute who gets stoned is one story, but they're never brought together as the same person. That comes in later Christianity, trying to get Mary Magdalene out of Jeshua's life, basically, so that because he could be a celibate avatar of Christianity. But when we look at lust is considered an uncontrolled desire for sexual pleasure or excessive desire for sexual pleasure. Now, what's so interesting about this, lust is this ideology that it's an immoral behavior. If you're in love with somebody, you can want them. You can have lust for them. I don't think it's wrong in any way, shape, or form to love someone and really want to make love to them, right? That's lust. That is the definition of lust, the desire. Now, they're saying it's excessive or uncontrolled desire for sexual pleasure. But in reality, if you've got a loving partner and you like to make love, there can be an excessive amount of lust for this person that you love and you have that experience in. or if you're not committed to someone and you are having consensual relationships with people who are very aware and understand that this is just us letting out our sexual desires, I don't think there's anything wrong in that at all. I mean, as long as there's nobody being harmed or hurt in the situation. In Spanish, there's te amo and te quiero. Te amo is I love you, te quiero is I want you, right? It comes down to this. Lust is a natural part of the body. It's the way that we procreate our species. We have the desire to have a sexual intercourse with someone so that we can, prolong our species. It's a part of nature, just like leaves falling on tops of roots at the right time of the year for the root growth to be enhanced by the nitrogen from the breaking down of the leaves. So it's all part of our natural cycle to have that lust within us. Church makes it an immorality, and it makes it wrong. And in reality, the only way the church, the actual church people, Pope Gregory and Saint Thomas Aquinas, the only way to counteract lust, one of their 7 deadly sins, which none of them are sins because they're not listed as sins anywhere. The only way to counteract it, in their view, is chastity, never having sex. And so that, it's an extreme measure to say I'm never going to have sex again. You could be happily married. You could be in a beautiful, loving, long-lasting relationship like Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. Those two pine over each other. I'll bet they have wonderful, lustful experiences together. I don't think lust is in any way, shape, or form wrong. The second is gluttony. Gluttony. Now, the definition of gluttony is overindulgence or overconsumption, typically of food and drink. So they're saying it's a sin for you to overeat. It's a sin for you to indulge more than you should. Now, I don't think it's an immorality in any way, shape, or form to eat a whole bunch of ice cream if you're really into ice cream that day. If you like pizza, have a pizza day. I don't think it is gluttony, but I think you'll suffer in the regard you'll have a stomach ache or something of that nature. But I don't think it's an immoral sin that's going to send you to some horrific place of punishment. So the idea of sin being that element of that. Now, the way gluttony is counteracted within the writings of Thomas Aquinas and Pope Gregory is temperance. Measure what you're eating, measure what you're doing, get very involved in this temperance of making sure you only eat just this much. And so, yeah, sure. I think it's, if you want to go on a diet and lose weight, then you will have to have some temperance. You'll have to have some willpower, which is another word for temperance. But it comes down to, I don't think in any way, shape, or form, God said, hey, if you eat one extra slice of pizza, I'm going to condemn you. There is no sin involved in gluttony. Let's go to the next one, greed. Now, Bible is very clear on greed. Talks about greed all the time, actually. The idea of, the love of money being the root of many evils. When you look at the love of money being the root of many evils, it's not money. It's not money the root of all evil, which a lot of people like to quote that, saying it says that. The actual quote is, the love of money is the root of many evils. If you are, in fact, committing acts that the church would consider sinful, harming another, stealing from someone else, then greed can lead to what the church would call sinful behavior. But greed itself is not a sin. It's not even meant to be a sin. You can be in a it's like when we were kids and we'd go trick or treating, and you get up to the bowl of all the candy and you reach down and you grab a giant handful of that candy. Your mom says, hey, put some of that back, right? That is greed. I want all this stuff. I want all this stuff, right? And I don't think that child's going to be punished for that. Mom just said, don't, share with the rest of your friends, share with the rest of the people who are trick-or-treating. Don't take all their candy, But if you're allowing your love of money to harm another, that's where you get into some real gray areas. Now, when they talk about greed, the counteract of greed in the St. Thomas Aquinas writings is charity. If you get greedy, then go give something away to someone who in need, someone who needs more, needs what you have, or offer something new. Give them something. And charity can come in many ways. You may not have finances in the moment, but you have the ability to go help. You have the ability to go, help that lady mow her lawn, or see that man who's trying to cut down a tree by himself, and you know how to do it, and you've got a chainsaw. You know, it's also charity too. It's giving of yourself to help another. And a greedy person might say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that because of various reasons." But the greedy person may say, "I want that firewood, so I'll go over there and do that so I can get his firewood." But it comes down to it's what are you doing with greed that can become a sinful action? And giving charity really is a way to just say, "I am loving my fellow man." And so, once again, greed is not a sin, and it's not it's the action you take from greed sometimes that can be sinful. Sloth, laziness, or failure to act or use one's talents. That's the definition that they use. Sloth, laziness. If laziness is a sin, a large percentage of this world are sinning on a regular basis. They don't, they're procrastinating. They're not doing the work that they want to do. They're not getting up and taking an action to make their lives better. They're not, doing the things that help their fellow man. They're just in not in action. And once again, not a sin. It's just not a likable quality in especially a partner, right? But when it comes down to the idea of literally sloth being laziness, um, you're not going to go to hell for being lazy. You're just not going to get much out of life because you're not putting your thoughts, words, and deeds into action effectively. And so you will get your own sort of lack of growth from being lazy, but it's not a sin. It's not even close to being a sin. Um, and they say that the way that you overcome sloth is through diligence, by making yourself do something and taking that action and forcing yourself to. And sure, if that is the way to break through it, because I personally find that all laziness and inaction is coming from some fear somewhere. Fear is always the great paralyzer. And so if you're not taking an action, you have to ask yourself, why aren't I taking an action? Am I afraid I'm going to have to work hard? Am I afraid that it might not work out and I'll fail? Am I afraid I'll let somebody down? There's always a fear in behind laziness, why we're not doing things. But is it a sin? No, not a sin. Um, and in fact, like I said, diligence is the way out. So, and diligence is interesting because diligence is basically saying take your present moment and act upon it. Do something in the now. The next of the sins is wrath, which is uncontrolled anger, rage, or hatred towards others. There is nowhere in the Bible that says hate is a sin. There is nowhere in the Bible where it says anger is a sin. There's nowhere in the Bible that emotional state is considered sinful. But people do things out of wrath and anger and jealousy and all these things. And those actions, once again, can be sinful. To harm another, to kill someone, to steal from them. That anger. That's mine. I'm taking that, and you're mad, so you take an action that is the Bible would consider sinful. I don't believe in sin myself. I think sin is exactly what the word translates to, which is miss the mark, and the mark that you're missing is love. So if you're doing something unloving, you're doing a sin, but in reality, you can counteract it by doing something loving. But all of these things are just emotional experiences or emotional choices, and it's telling you how to overcome them. But they're not sins, and they are not considered deadly. Now, of course, wrath, something like that, could absolutely make it deadly because you could get into a fight that where you could die. But um, wrath and anger itself and rage itself is not a sin anywhere in the Bible. It is, once again, from the 500s and the 1300s, and after Thomas Aquinas got a hold of it. The next one is envy. Envy. How many of you have gotten a message from someone on vacation in Hawaii? You said, "Man, I wish I was there." That's envy. That's a sin? I don't think that's a sin, right? You go down the road and you see someone drive by in the exact sports car or off-road vehicle you want, and you're like, "Man, I wish I had that." That's envy. I'm envying that. Not a sin. They would call it coveting, right? But you're coveting your neighbor's house, you're coveting your neighbor's goods. That would be the envy of it. But covet is an interesting twist on that variation, because covetous, to be covetous, means we are not only envious, but we are taking an ownership over it. So we are literally stepping into a role of taking it. And so the envy itself, I can be very envious of my friend who lives at the beach right now. But rather than succumb to envy, I declare I'm moving to the beach. I'm joyfully, transitioning my life back to the beach. And when you do that, you find that you're literally succumbing or surpassing envy with creation itself. And in envy, it says the fastest way to overcome envy is through gratitude. Be grateful for things. And I talked on a video the other day about preemptive gratitude, where you're creating things. I am joyfully and excitedly going back to the beach and hanging out with my friends, right? I talked to my best friend last night in the middle of a conversation. He says, "Jhon, I just miss you. I wish you were here." Right. And, you know, yeah, I envy him being at the beach. Sure. But I know I'm creating that experience with being down there hanging out with my family and friends. So I know that that's in the works. I know that's coming. I don't succumb to the envy of it. I envy it, in fact, that I'm living in a state that I'm not overly fond of now. And I am extremely fond of being back at the beach, but I'm not going to covet it. I'm not going to try to take it from someone. I'm going to create my own experience into it and take the envy away by just living it and being it. So envy, not a sin. Once again, the last of these is pride. Pride. You're not, according to the church, you're not allowed to be proud of what you do, of who you are. You're not allowed. And a lot of people will say that this means narcissism. Doesn't say that. People will negotiate their ideologies into the text, but these aren't even biblical texts. These are theological writings that happened hundreds and over 1,000 years later. So they're not even something that is biblical for you to negotiate into. They're somebody else's thoughts on the Bible. And so the 7 deadly sins are not deadly at all, and they're not sins. They're just emotional states that the church deems as immoral. And are they immoral? Is it okay to lust for your wife or your husband or your partner? Is it wrong to lust for them? I don't think so. Is it wrong for them to lust for you? I don't think so. Is it wrong of you to have that extra slice of pizza or two? I don't think so. Is it wrong of you to um, you want more abundance in your life, to create more monetary abundance in your life? You can do that without greed. You can just create it into your experience. I live with the bills paid and the roof over my head paid, right? Am I a multimillionaire? No. Could I be? Sure. Well, what I do is that I would put it to work in good works, doing good works with that money. But right now, I'm very content with the way my life is going and the income I'm creating and the experiences I'm having. And so I don't fall into the trap of greed. I don't fall into the experience of the love of money. But even the love of money is not a sin. It's the root of many evils, sure, but it itself is not a sin. When you look at the next one, sloth, laziness. I took Sunday off, so I'm going to lay on the couch. I'm going to watch TV all day. Somebody else would subjectively say I'm being lazy on Sunday. No, I'm saying I'm relaxing. You know, it's a subjective judgment by someone else that says you're lazy, and it can be a choice of your own to simply be lazy and not take action. But it's not a sin. It's not a sin. Um, Wrath, the uncontrolled anger or rage, you find the more you have those sorts of experiences and you simply exhale, the rage and the wrath goes away anyway. You come back to that place of just letting yourself let go of the fears and the anxieties that creates wrath and this anger and this rage, because they're all based on a fear. And so it says in here that the the wrath is overcome by patience. Well, patience is what I would consider a virtue of love. Wrath is overcome by love. Fear is overcome by love. And all negative emotions like wrath, anger, and rage come from fear. And all positive emotions like joy and fun and kindness come from love. And so overcome your wrath by simply exhale, releasing the fear in your body and coming back to that space where you yourself are loving. And you'll overcome that anyway. Envy, jealousy, desire for what other people have or their possessions. Boy, I'd love to have a red Corvette. Not really. I'm not a Corvette guy, really. But that thinking that I don't think is wrong. Envying my neighbor's beautiful new car, or their property being a little larger than mine. That's not a sin. That's just trying to keep up with the Joneses. But one of the true symptoms of spiritual awareness is uh, the release of the need for material things. You really kind of break free of that cycle anyway. And so envy kind of becomes moot. Um, and lastly, pride. I'm very proud of the work that I do. I think I do good work. I'm happy to be able to bring a service to people to help people step into their own power. I put out videos daily just because I think they're helpful. And the intention is for them to be helpful. I'm very proud of the amount of work that I'm doing. I put a lot of time and effort. I even put a lot of money into getting these better cameras. I hope you like the camera that I'm using now. This is a Sony FX30, and I just think it's a beautiful image. And I've been doing my best to up my video game because I think it best serves the people that I'm trying to help. You. And so, am I proud of that? Yeah, I'm very proud of the work I do. And when my mom came through a medium many years ago, she literally said, "You don't know all the good you're doing." And I'm proud of that. And I could feel the pride from my mother. I don't think you have to beat yourself up. I don't think you have to think less of yourself. I don't think I don't think you have to believe you're unworthy or unloved like the churches tell you. Born in sin and a wretch like me and all that stuff. It's just judgment and fear and anxiety that's cast upon you by the church doctrines themselves. And you can be proud of yourself if you're doing good works. If you know you're doing bad things, or you know you're doing, things that are harmful to others, you know it. If you're proud of being harmful to others, there's your problem. Proud of being harmful. You're not proud. You're never proud of that. You don't like it. You may feel you like it, but that's the adrenaline rush. That's not the actual belief. You know when you're doing something wrong. And I know that I put my loving intention into everything I do. So I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the fact that I do that work. It's not a sin. And there's no reason for you to think of yourself as sinful. And the counterbalance for pride in Thomas Aquinas' work is humility. Live in humility. You're not saying you're better than anybody else. You're not saying you're being narcissistic or using narcissistic tendencies to put people in their place to make yourself feel powerful. Pride is not that. Pride is to know you do good works and have pride in the fact that you are doing good works. And that, for me, is not and never will be a sin. I think it's okay to be proud of yourself if you're doing good works. Even in the Bible, when they talk about when you one of the quotes that they use all the time at funerals. I actually don't know if it's in the Bible or not, but it is the quotes they use all the time um, in funerals. It's like, good work, my fine and faithful servant, right? And that supposedly Jesus or God says that to you when you come across, good work, and that's pride in you. That's proud of you, And if pride is wrong, it can't be wrong coming to you, and it can't be wrong coming from you. I tell people all the time when I see them change their lives, I tell them how proud I am of them because I think it's important that they hear. And so the 7 deadly sins, number 1, not sins. Number 2, not deadly. They're just ideologies or theology from Pope Gregory the First and Thomas Aquinas, some and all in between the 500s and the 1300s. This immoralities of these seven immoralities and 7 virtues to overcome them, but they're not sins and they're not deadly. I hope that makes sense to you guys. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.